Hello.
Who are your favourite panellists on Match of the Day?
Good question. Very good.
Ian Wright.
I love variety. Obviously, variety. Love variety. I think Alan Shearer, since he decided he wasn't going to be a manager, has blossomed massively, and he's excellent now. I really like Danny Murphy. I think he's
good.
I don't do enthusiasm. Danny Murphy, I think, is great analytically, and I think Jermaine Genius will be a big star in a few years. Really good. So, I mean, we have a great team, and I think it's, you know, we kind of mess it about and we juggle it around nowadays, but I think all our guys are, you know, there are not that many in football that can articulate it and do analysis and stuff like that, but so we, you know, I think we get the best brains in our business. Probably management suffers for it, I think, sometimes, because it's a decent living to go into after football that keeps you into the game. Well, we don't worry about him, but he's a right back. What does he know?
But I want Gary Neville out coaching. I want Carragher should be coaching. Gerrard obviously is taking street. Lampard's now, you're working with him at BT. Lampard is could well be a future coach of Chelsea. We're losing these, so it's fantastic. I flick on the television and the analysis has never been so good. It is brilliant. But I tell you what, where the coaches, I mean, look, there are good coaches coming through.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But I want to see the Lampards, the Gerrards, Scholes, and just embedded with age group teams or with coaching, you know, sort of senior managers.
But, you know, the best players have not always become the best manager. I know Zidane has been an exception. But, you know, you look at people, Arsene Wenger didn't have much of a career. Jose Mourinho, not much of a career.
Exactly.
There's so many, so it doesn't necessarily follow. But there are a lot of intelligent footballers around that are not necessarily made it all the way to the top in football, that because they are relatively cerebral, they can do really well in coaching. And
but when we appreciate this fantastic analysis, you think, well, it's brilliant telling us, but why don't you just go and tell it to a dressing room, because they may respond as well.
Because footballers are dopey, they can't take it in.
You can actually have those players going in and doing that without them actually becoming a manager. They could still do the punditry, but actually give that expertise, say, to the England team, spend some time in camps, and to their clubs. You know, Frank Lampard still go back to Chelsea and have sessions with those, but they don't necessarily have to commit themselves 100% to being a manager, do they? There's a kind of halfway house option.
But if you're a Chelsea fan, I bet you'd love to see, say, Lampard or John Terry.
But the most important thing, you have to be afforded the opportunity to go back.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. A lot of our boys go out of football because they're not being afforded the opportunity to go back in and
we have that long
managers.
Coaching process that you have to go through that takes years, and it's quite.
Robbie Fowler's an example. I was working with him the other night. He's just got his pro licence and he's keen, he's waiting for an opportunity. But then when they do get one, say like Teddy Sheringham, it's so easy to write them off from the first job. Is Teddy Sheringham ideally suited to Stevenage? Was that a match made in heaven? Because it didn't work out there for whatever reason, is he suddenly on the scrap heap of management? That's the concern as well of top players, isn't it? Putting their reputation on the block like that.
Well, you got two choices. You either go in at the top, where you very rarely get an opportunity to go in at the top. But Tim Sherwood went in at the top. Tim's a very good manager, but wasn't. He did a spell at Tottenham, came out of there and never really got an opportunity. Went to Villa for a bit, but as soon as the results started going wrong, he was gone, never to be seen again. At the moment, so he goes back into doing the TV side of things. Teddy Sheringham goes to Stevenage and says, "Oh, I'll do it the other way. I'll see if I can work my way up." He doesn't do that well. You've got to look at the budget. You look at the side. Doesn't do that well. He's now in China because he's not afforded another opportunity in this country.
What I would like to see as well, Jacqui, is that, you know, there are a lot of good players, ex-English players, and I think what they should do. You've got 16 age groups within the FA, male and female. 16 teams. Yeah. Now, you can't tell me, with all the issues we've had around English players or England when they play and they have all the issues psychologically, you can't tell me that I'd love to see your Ian Wright, your Gerrard, your Lampard, your Ledley Kings, that on, you know, get involved with the England squad as role models. Because obviously they talk about a lot of the pressure psychologically on England, you know, at the highest level. These players have got so much to offer, equally on the women's game as well. You know, they should be integrated to make it more inclusive and diverse as well. You know, to have a pool of coaches that they can call on to be part when they get, you know, when they all join up together. You know, you can imagine what that'd be like around the environment to know you've got these players that's come in, part of the team talks, that visibility, mentoring, you know, the players say, these are the challenges I face, you know, and impart that knowledge. Because
Is there a concern though with the coaches that are in place? Because a lot of those lower age group coaches are not big names at all themselves. They're not household names. Are they concerned that a big name would come in? And
Well, they should be comfortable in their skin. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, you're not asking them to pick the team or do the tactics. You're just saying to them, you know, you can imagine, you know, Righty, Redknapp, and, you know, just being part of the conversations, being part of the dressing room, you know, just encouraging them, taking them just to, you know, aside. I think that it would have such a positive effect on the game, you know, and for our young players as part of their own development.
is there a reason that's not happening?
Well, it's something that I'm discussing. I mean, I spoke with Henry about it last week, and it's a proposal that, you know, that's been sort of put in, and it's under broader consideration now. But I just feel, listen, at the end of the day, you know, because it's been established you've been a top player doesn't mean you're going to be a top manager. I mean, if you look at Arsenal, you look at, you know, Sir Alex to a point, you look at, you know, there's a number of different types of managers. It's not been your traditional from your 1980s, your ex-players that's played at the top level and gone in. The whole game has changed now, and the management techniques, the sophistication, the sports scientists. You've got to be far more than just an ex-player, in my opinion, to be a manager.
Also, Paul, what you have to look at is people that are doing coaching courses, because your role is to maybe show someone how to structure a team and how to put some sessions together. But it's not your view to influence how they play football. Someone might want to be a long ball specialist. You know, Sam Allardyce probably wouldn't have passed his qualifications now, because now they want to teach you. Because no, I don't mean that as disrespect to Sam.
Hang on, he got the job as an England manager, but he wouldn't have passed his qualification.
But what I'm saying is, the way Sam wanted to play football. If he went out on the training field and went, right, this is how I want to do it, he wouldn't pass the English pro license.
It doesn't fit into what
they
want.
It doesn't fit into the way to do it. Because what we do is we look at Germany and go, well, that's the way we got to go now. Or we look at France when they win something and say, that's the way we got to go. We lose our own identity. We try to follow everybody else's.
Hence the DNA document that Dan Ashworth put together.
And then what happens is the coaches try to influence you to play in a certain way, but that's not their job. And that's the problem.
Just one thing, we will promise we'll go back to the floor, but something that fascinates me, because I mean, we talked to a lot of pundits, we talked to a lot of people in the game. I'm absolutely fascinated by the number of players and ex-players who talk about a famous, well-known manager at the top, who cannot manage people. They'll say, oh, he's a good coach, but he can't talk. I can name you, I won't do it now. I can name you various managers who are well in the Premier League, who cannot talk to their players, cannot manage them as human beings. And there's so much emphasis put on coaching badges and coaching, and there seems very little emphasis on how you actually interact. Is that an innate thing? Either you can do it or you can't, or is that something that can be coached? Do you reckon?
I think, I mean, I think a lot of it depends on people's personalities as well. Because, I mean, I've played for one or two brilliant managers, Glenn Hoddle, David Pleat, who I thought, you know, I think are fantastic managers, you know. But obviously every manager's got different management. Sir Alex, you know, he could be, you know, a certain type, but I think he evolved with the game, you know, and the game has evolved. And I just think if you look at players now, you know, for sort of certain types of captains, your Tony Adams in your sort of 80s, your Roy Keanes, but you look at your more different types, your Steven Gerrards, less is more. You know, those players could have great presence in a dressing room and could say, didn't have to shout and scream, but they could say one or two big pieces and that would resonate. So I just think the whole dynamics of the game have changed. Football, it's amazing. And Arsenal's made a brilliant point, you know, when he's saying about the kind of requisite skills now in the longer game. And that's going to be the advancement of technology is going to make a huge influence, because technology is so much on data, on stats, on the run. But I think that's going to be the decision-making process as well. And it's going to be far more collective, I think, and technology-focused rather than an individual.
I think it became difficult for managers, and the dynamic changed when players started earning more than the managers, because the manager always had that ability to control a player by saying, actually, you're not playing at the weekend, your win bonus is out, you know, you might struggle to pay your mortgage. That has gone now because you've got 17-year-olds on 30 grand a week.
Yep, that is absolutely the case, and the rest. Yes, sir.
This is for the whole panel, but I guess a little bit leaning towards Henry and Gary. What do you think about the media's role in the game these days? I think especially when you're looking at the decision of former players to get involved in the media side or in, you know, coaching roles and what have you. It's obviously slightly easier perhaps and more understandable to say, let me get involved in commenting on the game rather than putting myself in the firing line? And do you sometimes get frustrated at a sort of base level of dialogue and, you know, individual like vindictiveness and sort of sort of more pointed personal elements of some of the coverage? I'm just interested in that sort of broad aspect.
Not quite sure I understand what the actual question is.
Are we nasty in the media?
Are we nasty? Is that?
No,
or,
not you, but as
I think obviously I'm not. Go on.
We're journalists chasing after a specific angle.
Yeah, I think just coming from, you know,
Well,
media coverage, you sometimes get frustrated at some of the sort of coverage that goes down.
Oh, listen, you get good coverage and you get coverage and less good coverage. I think primarily, generally, we have really good coverage of our sport in this country. Yeah. I mean, some person's commentator, you know, won't like, and you know, you'll like someone else, and the same person will like the person you don't like, and you know, that's the nature of the game we live in, because it's opinion about people's having an opinion. So you're going to hate some co-commentators or some pundits, and the other people will like the ones that you hate. So that's the way it is. But what we do loads of research and stuff, and we gauge the popularity of our pundits. Don't think we just chuck them in there and then everyone hates them. If that's the case, then they'll be eased out. We're not daft. We want people to like our pundits. So there's a lot of research done on that. It's never published, but it's internal. But I'm kind of involved in it, so I know. But you know, the media does a great job for football in this country. I mean, it's huge. The newspaper coverage, the radio coverage, the television coverage. It's everywhere, and that promotes the game. Sometimes I think football itself doesn't appreciate it enough. They don't realise what the media does for their game, because without it, it wouldn't be as popular and it wouldn't be covered as well, and it wouldn't be as financially lucrative as it is for the players and the managers and everyone else involved. So I think everyone works together. Sometimes, you know, journalists have to say what they think. We have to say what we think. Sometimes we'll upset clubs. Sometimes we'll upset managers. But it's the nature of the beast. You can't go on TV and not say what you think nowadays. It's too competitive an industry nowadays for pundits not just to go on there and kind of sit on the fence. You can't do that anymore.
We've never had so much coverage, in-depth coverage. I mean, take The Guardian, take The Times, take The Telegraph. You know, you look at those three broadsheets in particular, the actual detail from the experts who come and talk to sort of people covering matches, you know, the detail of matches. And I just hope it continues. But I would actually say enjoy this period now, because I think in 10 years' time, there won't be so many newspapers. I don't think the websites will focus as deeply on teams down the division, and they'll just focus on the bigger league. So enjoy it while it lasts.
But Henry, isn't that the way we're going? Because you obviously, right at the top of your tree, you can say, I quite fancy going to interview whoever now. I'm going to go and spend the weekend with Brighton, which is wonderful. But so many sports journalists graduate and then go and sit in an office. I think it's fair to say you'll know a lot better than me, and some people in the room will know, and don't actually get to go out and even go to a press conference anymore. So much is based around what somebody else has said or something's come up on Twitter, and within seconds it's a story on, I won't name the paper, but the various papers. It's a story on the website, and they're not actually doing any journalism anymore.
I agree. I think that is a huge problem. And one of the problems, I mean, I go and give talks at journalism schools. We have so many journalism schools in this country. There's a new course starting up, 3-year course just on football journalism. Yeah. You know, I mean, which is great, but you worry where they all going to go. But no, I would like to see a bit more editorial control on websites, because I think things are put up. I mean, I was working for one newspaper, and we had a rather large libel payout to a well-known footballer because they just ran a story which anyone with an ounce of experience would have said, actually, no, he's not a drinker, he's a proper player for Manchester United, and he's teetotal. So I think there's a sort of different balance.
Okay. Oh, blimey. Yes, sir. You're up there, I can see you. Do ask a question.
Yeah, I would like to just refer back to what Paul said in the first half of the programme. He was talking about young players, and I'd like to make a comparison between Marcus Rashford and Ravel Morrison. And essentially, Ravel Morrison was the greatest player of his generation.
Yeah.
Whereas Marcus...
Potentially.
An outstanding, potentially, yeah.
The greatest player of his generation, whereas Marcus Rashford got the chance because of an injury to Anthony Martial. Now Marcus Rashford is guaranteed a starter in the England team, and I want to ask the panel which players didn't have that opportunity that Marcus Rashford had, which you guys think would now be world-class players?
There wouldn't be any.
That's right.
None.
But had Ravel Morrison got,
None.
he'd be playing, wouldn't he? Had
Because
he
it's
got the
not about
attitude?
it's not about just talent. It's about
Yeah.
what's between the ears, and that's 90% of it. And that's
Correct.
why most of the ones with loads of bags of talent, the Ravel Morrisons of this world, never realise their potential because they haven't got what's
Fergie wouldn't
needed
have kept
between
him if
them.
that was the case, wouldn't
Yeah,
he?
no, Gary's spot on, and I think the prerequisite now, I mean, talent plus attitude, plus luck, plus extreme dedication gives you a big chance.
Yeah.
The talent, for me, you know, over my own generations, I've seen some outstanding players with just more talent than what I've, you know, they've got it on one toe, but they didn't have all the other elements. They wasn't dedicated, they wasn't focused, they wasn't prepared to work hard in training, they were ill-disciplined.
Yep.
You know, their life away from the pitch wasn't conducive to a professional. You've got to be now, and that's why I respect, you know, the modern day players, the dedication that they've got to put, and it is self-sacrifice. You know, because they are so susceptible to so many different things. And we spoke today, I think Arsene was saying about a lot of the players, you know, at the end of the game, you know, and the point that was highlighted about the, you know, the other issues, the mental issues at the game, at the end of the game. And it's not because you've got money or you haven't got money. You know, it's an illness and it can come from different forms. And I just think, gone are the days now when you see those talents now, if you look at managers, they won't gamble with that because there's so much at stake to win a game. And you've got to have players who have, like your Rashfords, who are good lads, humble lads, extremely talented, got a tremendous attitude and work for the team. You know, that's the qualities. Not just need to get there, but to stay there over a 10-year period.
But the other thing they also need is they need a support network.
Yeah,
Rashford
structure.
has got
Yeah.
good brothers, he's got a good family, they're good people around him, like Danny was at Welbeck. You look at Ravel Morrison, who comes from just a terrible, broken background, and you have to have some sympathy with him. No one taught him how to prepare himself professionally for matches. When he was playing for England under 16s, the coach rang up his agent and said, "Can you get out here because we're, I think they were somewhere in Bosnia or Serbia, for a tournament," and he said, "Can you bring Mars bars and Lucozade out because Ravel won't eat anything else or drink anything else," because he'd grown up just eating those things because his parents weren't around. So I do have an element of sympathy, but then the ones who really get to the top, like Dele Alli didn't come from the easiest of backgrounds.
Correct.
And he effectively took himself out of the home that he grew up in because he realised it wasn't conducive to his professional development. And look at him now.
Yes, sir.
Is there more room for non-ex-players on TV? So at the moment, all pundits are ex-footballers. Will we see people like journalists coming more into the game? Because obviously it is their life to study the game.
On Match of the Day and stuff.
Well, yeah.
No, because
Well,
they
the
can't.
best,
Is there still
They
that
can't
attitude
describe,
that
they can't tell you what it's like to take a penalty with 3 minutes to go in a massive game. They cannot tell you that. And whilst they have a great understanding of the game, and Henry, like many other journalists that I know, have that great understanding, that their play, you know, to report a match, they can, with beautiful language and that sort of stuff, absolutely. But to tell you how it feels and to tell you what players are doing wrong, it's really difficult. The disadvantage football has had over other sports on this subject is massive, but I think it's easily explained. In football, most people have played at some point. Most, you know, have played at some kind of level. But you only ever play against people of a similar level. You have no idea how good Premier League footballers are. Absolutely no idea, any of you that have played just at amateur level. You'll have always, all of you have probably played with someone at school that was unbelievably good, better than everyone else, and you go, wow, and he had a trial with so-and-so, he never quite made it, because you've no idea how good you've got to be. Whereas in another sport, like tennis or golf, for example, we'll all go on a golf course, and then you all realise how good the professional players are, because golf's bloody hard, but it's measurable. It's measurable because you're playing on a golf course and you get a score and you can see how far you hit it, and then you see, if you ever play with a pro, you can also do that. You can't do that in football. You can't go on a pitch and play football. So, and all fans, you've all done it. I've done it myself. You sit in the stand, you think, I could do better than that. But you've no idea, and that's why we have to have the top players in the programme to tell you about these things, even though you perhaps yourself think you know loads of stuff, but you would never ever go to tell a professional golfer how to swing a golf club and the technicalities of it. And it's exactly the same in football. You would never get it in cricket either. All the other sports, but whereas in football everyone plays at their own little level and they all think they're actually better than they are. I'm sorry to say it like that.
Right. It's a different programme.
But that's why you've got to have people who've played at the highest level to talk about World Cup matches, because they've kind of been there and done it and experienced it.
And also, Gary, as well, is the manner in which they articulate it.
Well, they've got to have that as well.
You know, because there's many that's actually played it. But they don't have the ability to be fluid, engaged. You know, look at the way they do the analysis. You know, you've got to be, up to speed with the VT, etc., etc., etc. And obviously, the great pundits you've got, I call it, they've got what you call the third eye. They tell you what you don't see. We could all watch the screen and think we all see that, but the pundit tells you what you don't see. And that's when they talk about managers as well.
What good pundits do,
Of course, and talk about managers as well. I mean, that's why I like, personally, people like, say, Glenn Hoddle, for example. Because one of the differences with Glenn, I call Glenn, he's got what I call is the third eye. He sees things that we don't see. But also, as well, when you listen to, and you sort of see a decision made as a manager on the bench, you say, why do you make that? Why do you make that decision? Look at some of the great managers that made those tactical decisions that affect the outcome of the game. And what people like Glenn can do, because he's been a manager and been a top-class player, he can think as a manager. He can look at the trend of the game and make that critical intervention, say, I need to change the game. I've looked at the two centre-backs. They've been dragged all over the place. I'll stick on someone else with a bit more pace to drag them wide. So my point is, to endorse what Gary says, that they see what you don't see, because they're used to, particularly managers, making those critical decisions at critical points in the game that affect outcomes.
But what is good, just on the back of that, and Gary's point, is because there's so many media platforms now, one of the most popular programmes on any channel is Sky's Sunday morning programme, where you have 4 journalists sitting around plastic croissants and dodgy coffee and just arguing over the stories that are on the back page. And I actually think that complements.
It's a different job.
It's not an analytical thing.
So I think there's a place for it.
That makes it more subjective, because it says, who's the expert?
It's a different job, so it's not for Match of the Day. But I can concur with you about sitting and watching football with Glenn Hoddle is absolutely fascinating. It's quite easy to deride people for different reasons, but if you actually sit and watch football match with Glenn Hoddle, it is a fascinating experience. He sees something completely different to other people in the room. We have got only a few more minutes, so again, if we could try and keep these quickfire questions and quickfire answers we can, just to get a few of you. Who's not asked? Yes, madam, back there. Thank you. The lady over there with the black.
Particularly this summer, with the amount of transfer fees being spent, a lot of people talk about like the death of football. But I was wondering, what do you think the single biggest challenge is for the modern game?
Quite quick.
It doesn't seem to be. It doesn't seem to be dying, does it? It seems to be prospering at the moment. I suppose the danger at some point is that it all implodes, but we've been saying that for so long. But it just seems to just go boom. Certainly.
Well, I said before you come on, Gary, that since 1992, the TV rights have gone up 70% every cycle, every 3 years, and I think it's huge now. I think it's about 8.5 billion domestically and 3 billion or whatever international. And I think it's going to go to a next level.
They're brilliant. Do so much community work, footballers. It never gets reported. Precisely. They go to endless hospitals.
Yeah,
no, it's not an interesting
mean,
story, but it's...
No, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. But I also talk to a lot of footballers, and you kind of hear the attitude towards having to do these community things, and it is pretty demoralising to hear it. Even I know a footballer who does a huge amount, and even he says a huge amount of charity, and even he said, when we have to do our community visits, it's an absolute...
Well, he doesn't have to love doing it, but if he does it, it's...
They do it because it's in the contract, they have to do it. But
I think it's a lot of feel-good factor, isn't it?
Years ago, the supporters were very close to the players in terms of what they earned. Players used to travel on the train to games. When I first went to QPR, players used to travel on the train to the games with the supporters. That doesn't happen now. players turn up, and if they turn up at the home game, they go into stadiums where they go underground. So that there is that dysfunction.
Headphones on.
Headphones on. They get off coaches. They've got headphones on. They don't stop. They go straight in. So there is that disparity between the players and the supporters nowadays.
That's the sort of thing I'm referring
But
to.
like I said, I think the time that it changes is when the supporters are not feeling like they get value for money anymore, and they stop turning up at the stadiums. That's the only time.
Just on the back of what Les is saying, my biggest concern is that we're going to lose a generation of fans, because there is an age group now between probably 16 and 24 who have got other things that interest them. They're going into college, they've got expenses, you've got to work out how to live in London, costs of accommodation and things like that, and I worry about them being priced out of the market in football. And whenever there's a television deal comes up, I always have the same conversation with Scudamore, when he laughs on it, and say, why don't you just bring the prices down, down and down and down, and the intelligent clubs are doing it. And one final thing on that, and I love football, and I just so worry about the atmosphere, because atmosphere is absolutely key also to selling it around the world. Well, people want the full stadium, which pretty much they are, and they want noisy stadium. You'll do that if you have a younger audience. You will do that also if you have a full away end, and you'll have a properly full away end if you actually only charge them 20 quid. Because in terms of the overall amount that clubs are making in vis-a-vis through the gate compared to what they're getting in through the television, it's a no-brainer.
They bring the ticket prices down, they pay for fans to travel, they're starting to do that.
In the Premier League, 20 is plenty
20
thing, haven't you, for away fans? That's great. In the Championship, Preston fans going to Elland Road, Leeds United, £44. Walk up. £44. 44, and Leeds were doing it last season, they're doing it this season to the category F. Preston fans go to them. So that's the kind of thing. Elland Road, fabulous stadium, fabulous club. We all know we'd love to see him back in the Premier League. But that is absolutely... well, as in... it's old, it's run down, it's been a while. Did my degree up there, it was fun. I can't remember much of it, but... yes, sir, you two in quick succession, and then we're going to have to wrap up. Yes, sir. And the lady behind you after that.
Just got a question. What are your feelings about money and football when you have Wayne Rooney earning 300k at United, goes to Everton, 200k. Neymar, you're talking about him doing so much for Paris and the country, but he's on 515k a week. So what are your feelings about that?
He'll survive.
He won't go hungry. He won't go hungry.
Good luck to him.
Does it matter?
Still wouldn't leave Barcelona.
No, it's a good point, mate. I mean, I don't begrudge the very top players what they earn, particularly when you see the queues outside the club. In terms of selling the show, what Beckham paid for his transfer fee when he went from Manchester United to Real Madrid. I think they said in about sort of 6 or 7 months through the merchandising at the club shop. I don't begrudge the top guys getting the top whack. The ones I really worry about are the sort of the middle. There's a middle class there who are getting huge amounts of money. Like, let's name a name, Jesse Lingard. Jesse Lingard is on supposedly around 90, 100 grand a week. Okay. Now, has he really earned that? Has he really delivered? What is that doing to his own personal ambition as well? So, he may well train on and be the new shining light for Manchester United. I hope he does. But the top players deserve it. But I'm sorry, there are too many middle-ranking players who don't deserve it.
And then there are the youth team players at certain clubs who are on extraordinary amounts of money, and they're choosing certain clubs over other clubs where they may get more opportunity because they may not get another contract like that. But then, where's the hunger? That's a whole nother show, isn't it, in itself? Oh, my goodness. Yes, sir.
There's a question for you. I just wanted to ask about, the myth around they're on the beach at the end of the season. I was recently reading a book that talked about, sort of debunks a lot of the myths around that and talks about basically the clauses that are written into players' contracts around bonuses. And he talked about how, contrary to what people think, the goal bonus and the assist bonus are basically significantly larger than the collective bonus that you get as a team for basically position-based at the end of the season. So he was saying that a lot of the players in this team that he played for, that's all anonymous, when they got to April and there was nothing to play for, they were all very much on the beach. Is that something that you ever faced in your career, that when you got to a certain point when you were safe, you saw other players around, you slowed down, or is that something that's true, or is it
Maybe I was unfortunate in my career because we were never safe. So we was always battling. No, you always you go through phases in the season where you're doing well, and then as you get to April, there has been teams where there's not been much to play for, and you probably haven't been on it as much as you should have been. But it wasn't because of the goal bonus or the assist bonus. We never got them when I was playing.
Was it?
I mean, it was like,
what was it because of?
I just think it was just a case. It's just a mentality that you're safe now, and you can't go up, you can't go down. And some players get into that mode. It becomes comfortable, and I think that's just a human emotion that you go through rather than anything else.
Okay, last question of the whole night. Stand up if you're desperate to ask. Okay, you were fastest. You're too slow.
That fella up there stood up about
Which
20
one?
times.
I'm sorry. I've got this massive light right behind you. Go on then.
Does the panel think that the introduction of safe standing into the Premier League would...
I'm not sure you look very safe.
would re-inject atmosphere into the Premier League?
Good question. Yeah. Very good question.
Well, it's such a debate. The issue is, I think most football fans would concur with that. I think I agree with you totally on the atmosphere. You know, the fact that so many English fans go over and watch German teams at the weekend because they like the atmosphere there, because they've juggled the safe standing. I think it was very significant that the Liverpool fans came out to support it, because there are 96 reasons that you have to take into account when we're discussing this. But also further down the line, you've got to change have a change of law, and the police have got to agree with it as well, and the stadium licensing authorities. And those are 3 significant hurdles to overcome. But it's a debate that started. The Football Supporters Federation are doing brilliant work and as are many of the trusts and supporters organisations.
It's got to be made sure it's safe.
As long as it's safe. But I think we are beginning to see it.
Well, I think it adds value to the atmosphere, doesn't it? I think was it Celtic? I think they've got about 3,000 seats, and I mean they're a fabulous team, great club, huge tradition, huge history, great supporters, and I think it adds value. But I think there's an ongoing consultation at the moment, isn't there?
Fans stand anyway.
Fans stand anyway,
so it might actually be safer to have an area which you know is
like
which is
20
for it.
Yeah, like well seats.
They did that at Brighton, by the way. I went Brighton away last season. They actually let you stand up. They're not supposed to, I don't think, so don't tell anyone. But it's brilliant. They just go stand wherever you like. It was absolutely fantastic. Loved it. And although we lost. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to Les Ferdinand. Thank you to Paul Elliot, Henry Winter, and Gary Lineker. If I can just say, thank you also to William Hill for matching the amount of money
very good.
that you've given tonight. And the Football Writers Association for organising this, for Paul McCarthy, Paddy Barclay and everybody on the committee there, the great work they've done in getting everyone together. And we will have raised five figures from you lot coming tonight and from you lot coming tonight. So thank you so much.